What Mountain? Chapter 6. Mike hesitated as he stood below a spiral staircase made of polished wood and gold trimming. If the places on the first level were like this, what could possibly exist above? It wasn't helpful that after talking to the blue-skinned informant, that the first place he saw was a video game store that promised to literally suck your mind into the game. This place was immediately followed by a wine shop turned water park in which there were wine slides and pools filled with wine. He even had a giant bottle of wine that was tipped over, acting as a fountain to one of the pools. This place was, of course, followed by one exactly like it, except it was beer. That one Mike actually found tempting. Mike, however, doubted that any of the hinges were in the stores themselves, and he also figured that it was a high probability that none of the hinges would be on the first level. So, there he stood, looking up at the spiral staircase that will take him up to the second level. He turned around, watching as a couple of giggling naked ladies with flushed cheeks walked out of the wine pool park. With a sigh, he turned back around and started climbing the stairs. Mike wasn't sure what he expected, but a plain, average-looking coffee shop with tables decorated with candles and a fresh roasting coffee bean aroma was not it. On this level of the tower, the sun was more pronounced, giving the mall more of an outdoorsy feel rather than of an inside of a mall. This gave the coffee shop even more of a cozy feel, honestly. Also, much to Mike's surprise, several people sat in a few of the tables fully clothed in normal attire, or as close to normal attire from the separate time periods the patrons seemed to be from, at least. For instance, one of the back tables there sat a man in a Victorian white wig and a blue suit, while the man sitting in front of the table looked more like a 50s gangster from Chicago. Mike walked up to the stand where yet another blue-skinned creature, this one with a set of cat ears and whiskers, was busy making a cappuccino. It smiled brightly when it noticed Mike. "How can I help you?" it said brightly. "Can I ask what this place is?" "Well, I suppose you can, but I think that's kind of silly. It's obviously a coffee shop." "Right, so no hinges here then." "Hinges? You looking to trying to attach a door or something?" "Huh. I don't know about any home improvement stores in the whole mountain, but you might be in luck as right next to us is the most expensive library in the world. I bet whatever it is you're looking for will be found easily in there. In fact, that library is why this coffee shop even exists. Go there, check out a book, and come back here to read it in comfort." Mike took a quick glance at the others in the shop, and sure enough, everyone there held a book in their hands. One lady, dressed in a dress that seemed made of craftily sewed bamboo leaves, was reading a book on the best garden techniques as developed by man. Then the man in the Victorian wig busted out laughing in a thick English accent. "Why, I say, America defeats Germany." Mike saw that he held a World War II book, and he couldn't help but marvel. How long had that man been here reading books? "So, you going to the library, or am I going to make you something, sweetheart?" the coffee creature asked. Half a minute later, Mike was walking past a giant statue of man, who, like half the people here, was naked, but this man held the most realistic model of Earth that Mike had ever seen on his shoulders as if he was holding it in place. The model Earth was in fact so detailed that closer inspection showed that the weather patterns across the model were flowing and held little doubt that it was showing the exact image of the Earth as it was at this very moment. The man, of course, Mike knew from his images of Greek mythology, the god, or whatever, that was supposed to be holding the skies upon his shoulders. "Atlas was his name, or my name," said a voice coming from the direction of the library. Mike turned quickly in shock, only to face a skinny, handsome, tall man with light brown, curly hair and lined green eyes. "Sorry," he laughed. "Didn't mean to frighten you. It's just that I like to greet all newcomers to my library." "Your library?" "Well, not exactly," admitted Atlas. "But it was built for me by the mountain." Mike turned back to examine the face a bit closer to the statue, and sure enough, it was an exact replica of the man before him. though to be fair, the statue seemed, well, more capable. Sure, the real Atlas was toned, fit, and handsome, but so was everyone in this place, and the statue only seemed to feel the need to exaggerate. I thought you were supposed to be a god or something. Well, a titan, actually, said Atlas. But no, I am just a man. I can see that, said Mike. Atlas just laughed. The myth, you know, Hercules actually started a long time ago. Told everyone that would listen to him that I hold the skies upon my shoulders, cursed by Zeus himself. Well, we're in Mount Olympus, aren't we? Tell me, do you see any Zeus here? There's the mountain, said Mike, and it just decided to build you a library. Well, yeah, said Atlas. It'll build you a place too if you stay long enough. Might even get your own fairy to watch it. Fairy? Do you mean those blue-skinned mountain people? Atlas held back a laugh. You've been calling them blue-skinned mountain people this whole time. Mike felt his cheek flush but didn't say anything. Atlas just shook his head and said, It's quite all right. I've heard 'em called all sorts of things. Well, Atlas said, drawing out the well longer than necessary. Please, if you have any questions, come and find me. I'm very proud of this place, and not too many newcomers such as yourself stay very long, and I like the company. Mike only hesitated a second before saying, Wait, you wouldn't happen to know where the hinges are, do you? Oh, you're one of them, Atlas said, his face growing cold. One of who? One of those people who seek a way out instead of accepting what has happened to them. This place gives you your desire. All that it takes is for you to find it. But it is here, I guarantee you. Then there's the little matter of the fact that in here you're safe. Well, mostly safe. In here your biological clock has been stopped, and in most cases even reversed. You step outside this tower, and time again starts going tick-tock, tick-tock. So go ahead, step outside, waste your new body, as I'm sure you did your last one. Mike scowled. If this place is so great, then why do people leave? Who knows, Atlas said. In search of the treasures of the other towers, I suppose. I can't be for sure because no one ever comes back, and the towers are the only place in all of the universes that my gaze cannot reach. Then there's the annoying fact that my gaze will not search for anyone who has completed the towers. My mind has been shut off to the towers and its peoples, Atlas said, turning towards the moving globe atop his statue's shoulders. He waved his hand at it, and Mike watched as the globe of the earth blurred until it focused in on one little girl in a sunflower pink dress in her mother's arms. Take her, for example, Atlas said. I know everything about her, and possibly soon so will the whole human world. But it can all change if the mountain decides to take her instead. Then I will know nothing about her. What's so important about her? Mike asked. Oh, nothing too remarkable. She only manages to become the President of the United States in a time of turmoil and famine. Kind of bland if you think about it. Still, her decisions will make or break the country. But that's only if the mountain doesn't keep her. Mike couldn't help himself and had to ask, Was I destined for greatness? You? Atlas laughed. Heavens no. But don't despair. Not everyone the mountains takes is some prodigy. Take, for example, your military friends who came up with you. Not one of them was anything. Yet the only ones the mountain eliminated were the spies. And the parents? Excuse me? Mike started to feel his anger. You've been watching my group climb the mountain, right? That's why you know so much about us. Well, yes. And I'm guessing your globe showed us who we were? Oh, Atlas laughed. It showed me much more than that. It showed me what you would be without its intervention. So, Mike, do you want to know what your destiny was? Mike felt the anger drain, and it was some time before he answered. No, I just want you to acknowledge the parents of the children we rescued. You mean the children Ulse and Emma rescued, Atlas said with a sigh. Tell me, I'm just curious, Why you mention them to me and not the 4 gangsters that also arrived with your group? Do you somehow feel sorry for the parents but not the criminals? Or is it that you are starting to think that if you find the children you can win Rebecca back? Mike gasped. You can see inside of this tower? No, I can't, Atlas said at once. But you haven't left Rebecca's side since you set foot on this mountain, and your eyes betray recent tears, so my logical conclusion is that you somehow lost her. I am also aware that the children will be lost, as that is how this place works. Each must follow their own calling. Okay, man, Mike said. Surely we weren't this interesting for you to have been watching us this closely. Well, Atlas said with a smile, I take an interest in all who climb the mountain. You still don't understand that you're now above all other petty humans. Even if you find all 4 hinges and make it back to Earth, you'll be set apart. A king amongst men. Fire in a land of darkness. Stories will be written about you that are immortalized, but rest assured that eventually those stories will be all that remain of you. So, my dear friend, stay here with me, and I'll open the door to my library where you can read, watch, admire, or do whatever your heart desires within. Mike took another glance at the coffee shop next door, watching as the Chicago gangster turned a page of whatever book he was reading. Atlas snapped his fingers, and behind him the doors of the library, which in hindsight were more like glass gates, slid open. Inside the library put the shops downstairs to shame. Massive bookshelves the size of small buildings rose into the air and seemed to expand as far as the eye could see. Above the shelves, almost as if plastered on like a sticker, were all sorts of airplanes, blimps, air balloons, and even magic carpets. The sky itself was a light gray color, and smack in the middle was a bright sun. Not a real sun. The sun was the type Mike had only seen in medieval maps or on objects trying to look mythical. The face of the sun seemed to smile at him and wink. Inside, Atlas said, is the collective knowledge of all of mankind, every secret that's ever been hidden, every bump of the earth that has ever been discovered. You want to know what they really found in Antarctica? What do the governments of the earth hide from you? Who's really in charge of the world? It's all in here. Did you know that magic is in fact real? Atlas smiled. Start your own Hogwarts and learn real magic in easy to understand texts, or push on the hinge in the center of knowledge and never speak to me again. Atlas finished, pointing towards the doors. Mike nodded, and as he did, he noticed that, like everyone here, Atlas' skin was smooth, almost silk-like, except for a single tattoo on the back of his arm. It was a tattoo of a scroll. Mike didn't wonder about this long, however. As he entered the library, his train of thought was lost. It wasn't that being inside was any more spectacular than looking at it from the outside, but inside he could feel the power of the place. In front stood yet another plain information booth, this one, however, already occupied by a fairy, sporting a monkey tail. Hello, Mike said. The fairy blinked in surprise. Are you talking to me? It said. Yes, Mike said. Right, sorry. It's just that Atlas usually does my job for me. Gives me very little to do, actually. Did you know he even watches who enters the mountains so he can watch everyone's backstory? Yeah, I kinda noticed, Mike said, irritated by the memory. I think he does it to look impressive, and I guess it works because he has a following. Maybe if I was allowed to do my job, people would know my name like that. Which is? Mike asked. Which is what? The fairy asked back. Your name. The fairy blinked at him in surprise again. My name. The fairy looked stunned, as if this question was something that had never been asked, and it started looking desperately around, landing on its own twitching tail. Call me Monkey Tail. Mike found himself raising an eyebrow, imagining that this was the way Rebecca used to look, which was always followed by a cringe-worthy, Howard? You don't know, do you? No, admitted the fairy. I forgot. Mike was at a loss. He had no idea if he should feel sorry for the creature or not Though, being honest, he really didn't have room to feel sorry for anyone else at the moment, as the idea of Rebecca not being by his side was like an anchor tied around his neck. Sorry, he decided to say, but continued right after. Anyways, I'm looking for the hinge, and I know it's in here somewhere. The fairy sighed, its monkey tail now drooping towards the floor. Look around, bub. There's lots of things in here. Don't pretend, Mike said, agitated. You know the hinge I'm after. Master Atlas doesn't like it when I speak of the hinge, it said flatly. Is he your master, though? I mean, I know this is his delusion from what I could figure out, but I thought you worked for the mountain. The creature laughed. Delusion. Mister, this place is real. Very real. But yes, I do work for the mountain. Then tell me where the hinge is. The fairy raised an eyebrow. Fine, I guess I'd have no choice in the matter. However, the location cannot be spoken, but I do have it written on this map, the blue fairy said, handing him a folded piece of paper that was hidden inside the booth. And if you have questions, don't forget to keep them to yourself, it said with a disappointed smile. A few moments later, Mike was stopped in his tracks. He couldn't help it. I mean, dinosaurs. In the Hall of Dinosaurs. As the entrance sign described it, Mike found the most complete skeletons of the monsters he used to worship as a child that he had ever seen. There were, of course, pictures, toys, statues, as well as books and movies scattered throughout the exhibits. But this place went even further. Mike, at the moment, was actually standing next to a live T-Rex, but much like the mammoth at the mall's entrance, the animal did little more than stand around looking at everyone who passed by. Still, Mike couldn't help but to sweat, feeling the excited, primitive fear in his gut as the T-Rex focused its tiny eyes on him. Of course, this wasn't the only primitive beast on display, and Mike couldn't have been sure how long he spent in the Hall of Dinosaurs. He had only been mildly aware, but now he was certain that in this place the need to eat and rest was only required if he wanted it to be. He had seen others, but made sure to keep his distance as he found the thought of human contact annoying at best. Though somewhere deep in his mind he knew he found that the thought of human contact disgusting, and would till he found a way to cope with the fact that he left Rebecca in a strange magical tower and possibly would never see her again. And for what? Because he could care less for finding those kids? Perhaps Rebecca was right, that they were their responsibility. Perhaps he should have found them, if nothing else, to make sure the mountain was taking care of them, as the fairy said it was. This thought brought him back to Atlas, which for all Mike knew he last saw days ago. Atlas said that he was only wanted to find the kids if he would win him back Rebecca. Now that Mike had time to think about it, and he stared into the eyes of some giant horned lizard, Atlas was probably right. Certainly, Mike was grateful that the child had managed to defeat the red tide dragon, though his strong connection to the mountain, but he didn't feel that this meant he should spend the rest of his possible immortal life looking for him. His last remaining interest in the children started and ended with Rebecca. It hit him then like a rock to the head. He gasped, taking in a lungful of air, and took a seat on the nearest stone bench next to an exhibit showing a life-scale replica of an ancient forest complete with small bird-like dinosaurs running between the different blue and green shades of trees and bushes. The small girl Atlas had showed him on the globe. It was Rebecca. He had been showing him Rebecca's past and telling him of her possible future. Unless the mountain take her. How could he have not recognized his own Rebecca? Despite this thought, he found himself laughing. How could he not? He had always known Rebecca was special, but still, President of the United States? Of course, he had always knew that Rebecca had ambition. In fact, the whole trip to the mountain was to celebrate Rebecca's promotion at work. No longer would she be the one answering the phones, guiding hysterical people. No, she did it. She was now a full-fledged agent. Of course, now that he knew where this ambition would lead, he could see the puzzle all fit together. This would have led Rebecca to gaining a reputation around town, and Mike easily saw Rebecca using this popularity to start a career in politics. She would have started small, maybe city council, then mayor, then work her way up from there, till she reached the top, and she would. That was simply who she was. The only question was, Would this life of hers have room for him? The T-Rex let loose an ear-piercing roar from the next hall over, as if in answer to his stupid question. The obvious answer was, does it matter? That world, for all intents and purposes, was over. It was now the fairy tale. Now Rebecca's only ambition was to find those children, and the more Mike thought about it, the more he found that he didn't want to find those kids. Then, for the first time in years, Mike thought of the question, what did Mike want? As it turned out, Mike wanted nothing more than to touch the hinge in the middle of the library and get out. Mike decided that he didn't need Atlas's dinosaurs or his library, as the man had done nothing but mock him, just as the Tiger Fairy and its paparazzi had. Mike had met people like Atlas before, people who liked to flaunt their knowledge on other people, not to help or lend support, but for the sole purpose of demonstrating their superiority. No wonder Hercules said that the man carried the world on his shoulders, and, Mike realized, just like the fictional Atlas, the real Atlas was just as trapped by the Earth. Maybe not by the physical Earth holding him down, but by the knowledge of it. As long as there was new information, Atlas would not leave his library, and neither, Mike figured, would his followers. Mike knew that he wanted nothing to do with this madness, and now that he was moving, the fact that he let mere dinosaurs distract him was appalling. Following the map given to him by the fairy was quite easy, and as long as you stayed on the main hallways of the library, there was nothing too out of the ordinary to suck you in. This didn't mean, though, that there was nothing. The signs themselves presented plenty of temptation with each new exhibit wing. One said, "Come and learn everything about the missions to the moon, and live it too," while another said, "Learn how to direct your own movie. No one leaves without a finished product." And finally Mike started to ignore the signs as he passed one that read, "Learn the secrets of Egyptian pyramids and discover a new way of life." Mike started to run till at last he came across the hinge. It was huge. The massive glowing white hinge stood in the center of the library, right underneath the glowing sun. Not too surprising, there was no door attached to it, but nevertheless, Mike could feel something was closed, and until he touched it, he wouldn't know what it was that was shut out from him. Mike stepped forward as Atlas appeared from behind one of the bookcases. "I knew you wouldn't be able to help yourself," he said with a touch of hysteria. "May I ask why you care?" Mike said blandly, because honestly, this was getting annoying. He hadn't even been surprised to find Atlas here. "Don't pretend like you don't know," Atlas said, walking forward. Mike shrugged. "It took me long enough to figure out that this little girl you showed me was Rebecca." Atlas stopped. "You didn't recognize her?" "Not at first, no. Turns out you don't know as much as you think." "Well, this is really the point, isn't it? Oh, look at Atlas. He's such a dum-dum, has no idea what's going on the other towers, and is too scared to find out. Ha ha ha. Well, I'm going to find out, and laugh, laugh, and laugh." Dude, okay," Mike shouted. "Spend all eternity in here for all I care. Honestly, I don't care what you do, man. I won't make fun of you." "Lies!" "Dude, I probably won't even remember who you are." "Yeah, Hercules said the same thing," Atlas said, then added, oddly calm, "except that it was in Greek." Then his brow hardened again. "The next thing you know, I'm the laughing stock of the whole Greek world, and my legend even lives on to this day as a freak with the world on his back. Hercules took my gift from the mountain, my statue, and turned it into a mockery." Mike knew he had only one chance. "You miss speaking Greek?" It sounded stupid, even to Mike's own ears. Atlas stopped moving forward, much to Mike's astonishment. "Yes, actually I do. It has an elegance that English simply falls short on. I mean, not even modern Greek really catches the essence of the ancient version. Words back in the day had meaning. Now, unless you have a cinematic universe, no one cares what you have to say. I'm afraid soon we'll be seeing people who can't or won't listen to anyone unless their face is on a TV screen. I guess I should start learning Marvelin." Get it? Mike had watched as Atlas' attention was turned upwards towards the sun as he spoke. Mike had taken advantage and snuck past Atlas, and was only inches away from the hinge when Atlas turned his attention back to Mike. Atlas' face turned red when he swiveled around to face him. "Oh, I get it," Atlas said. "You are making fun of me." Mike gave one last look at Atlas and tapped the hinge. That was followed by a loud electronic bell, and the hinge glowed white for the briefest of seconds. A voice, which sounded a lot like one of the blue fairies, said, "One hinge has been rung. To continue to the next tower, find the other 3 hinges, or team up with someone who has. Thank you." Mike smiled at Atlas, whose face now resembled a tomato. "You want it happening over the other 3 hinges are, do you?" "You," Atlas said, "you indulged in my library, and still had the nerve to ring that hinge. Come on, man, it was dinosaurs." "Well, I hope the terrible lizards were worth it." Mike had never been a fighter. Where Hercules had defeated Atlas, Mike found himself being at Atlas's mercy. Mike was beaten down by him, and this was soon joined by Atlas's friends that Mike remembered seeing from the coffee shop, and he was taken away and thrown in an empty room somewhere in the library. He wasn't sure how long Atlas kept him locked away with the occasional beating or lecture, but eventually he was released with the promise to never return, and Mike was only too happy to oblige. "You're lucky I find you dull," Atlas said as Mike left the library. Mike felt anger, but didn't or couldn't say anything, because after being stuck in a room for possible months, with nothing but himself for company, he secretly agreed with him. Who was he without Rebecca? Rebecca, who could be the president if she wanted. Then a single thought crossed his mind. Water. Water was who he was, and his mind filled with the images of the ocean that Rebecca has so despised. And before he even knew where he was heading, Mike was running down the stairs towards the waterfall, and he thought of the other 3 hinges, a distant memory.